Hello and welcome back to America's Forum. I'm John Bachman.
And I'm J.D. Hayworth. And John, we're honored to be joined by legal analyst Michelle Suskauer. Michelle, thanks for hanging in with us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, we'll have more from Michelle coming up later in the show, but quickly we're going to talk about Dick Morris. We had the political analyst here on our show earlier today talking about the hotly contested special election for Florida's 13th congressional district. Here is what Dick Morris had to say.
In states that Romney carried. Okay? Now, so if we win all 7 of those, the Republicans control the Senate. And those are all states Romney carried, and all but one of them are states McCain carried too. Now you have an election in a district where Obama carried it, both in 08 and in 12, and a Republican gets elected to Congress. A very, very interesting 7. You have 5 or 6 others that went for Obama both times. But in which there were very significant chances of taking away a Democratic seat. 2 with open seats, Michigan and Iowa, and some with endangered incumbents, Colorado, New Hampshire, Minnesota.
And joining us now to add his perspective to this conversation, Newsmax White House correspondent John Gizzi. Brother Gizzi, it's great to have you back on America's Forum.
Great to be back, Brother Hayworth, Brother John, and Sister Michelle. Thanks for having me.
We got a revival going on here, right?
Brothers and sisters. Well, let's talk. Speaking of revival, all the talk, and you remember the old days, Gizzi, the Republicans in special elections, we used to joke in conference, our mission is to keep the headline on this race back on page 26A of the Washington Post. In other words, when Republicans win, it's usually soft-pedaled. I got to tell you, it doesn't seem to be that way today. People are rushing to say this special race was a bellwether in Florida. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, when it makes page 3 of the Washington Post this morning and is one of the lead stories on CBS Morning News, I would say, as they say in Hollywood, if that's not the case, they're doing a great job of faking it. The fact is that David Jolly began this race as an underdog. He had a grueling primary over 2 opponents, one that split the family of the late Congressman Bill Young, Bill Young's widow endorsing Mr. Jolly, his longtime aide, and his son endorsing a primary opponent. In addition, the Democratic candidate, Alex Sink, was very nearly elected governor in 2010. She began the race with the tremendous advantage of name recognition. How did Jolly turn it around as he was being battered with an overwhelming spending advantage? $2 million for the Democrat, $500,000 for him, leaving out the outside expenditures. I'll sum it up in one phrase: Obamacare. He supported the repeal and redo philosophy. In other words, get it off the books and start fresh with something else. His opponent took the line that Democrats are saying now: fix it but don't scrap it. Well, the voters had a chance to decide. One postscript on this. This is a candidate, David Jolly, obviously a good campaigner, but flawed. He was a lobbyist, something that doesn't exactly endear people to voters. Alex Sink pounded him on that repeatedly. He also had a libertarian taking votes that almost surely would have gone to him. In the end, he won. So against all those odds, I would say the only thing a logical person can conclude is Obamacare packs a punch.
And John, let's talk a little bit more about the libertarian influence on this campaign, because this has to be a concern for Republicans running elsewhere in the country in other elections. Do you think this is a bellwether as far as the impact of a libertarian candidate in other races as well as what we saw in 13th here?
It certainly is, and I just came from a meeting today where this was being discussed. This is a subject, John, I followed very closely in the Virginia race, where the Libertarian did not get into double digits, which would have given his party permanent ballot status for a few years in the Old Dominion state. It got 6.5% of the vote. Senator John Thune told me he would have won a very narrow Senate race 2 years before he was actually elected, save for the Libertarian who made the difference. Celinda Lake, a well-known Democratic pollster, tells me she frankly encourages the trend of Libertarians drawing votes from Republicans because they're attracted to it, because of their small government message. The fact is that the evidence is overwhelming. Libertarians hurt Republicans more than they hurt Democrats. And one more thing, Republicans panic. They do their utmost to try to discourage Libertarians or even get them off the ballot. Democrats barely utter a peep of protest about them.
But it was interesting in this particular case in the Florida special in District 13, John. Last week, as I understand it, Rand Paul was doing telephone calls into the district. Rand Paul,
yes,
as a Republican, a Libertarian/Republican. Is this something that helps Rand Paul in his national ambitions? Because there are some who suggest that it helped to blunt the impact of the Libertarian candidate in this special race.
Well, certainly, if anyone can discourage people from pulling that third lever for the Libertarian, it's Rand Paul, the crown prince of Libertarianism. And he and his father both campaigned for Republican Ken Cuccinelli in Virginia. Instead of vote for the Libertarian, Robert Sarvis was wasted. That didn't do well. In this race, his robocalls blitzed the district on the weekend before the balloting, and clearly it made a difference. Let me add something else. Polls were showing Lucas Overby, the Libertarian in Florida, surging, getting from 5 to 7, double digits in some polls. In the end, he got a respectable 4.85%, and the race was a little tight at the top. So Libertarians are certainly a factor when it comes to close races, and that's something Republicans need to pay attention to.
There's also, John, there's also a Republican Libertarian candidate announced for the governor's race in Florida as well. Is that something that Governor Rick Scott should be concerned about at this point?
Again, Governor Rick Scott, in defeating Democrat Alex Sink, was one of the closest state house winners of 2010. Polls show him tied or trailing the former governor and Republican turncoat Charlie Crist. I think it's something that he should definitely be worried about, although Rick Scott certainly has some credentials that would endear him to the small L Libertarians. He's the one who, at great political cost, stopped a mass transit system in the state, and that would have cost the taxpayers more money, but would have obviously benefited certain groups within the state.
John, as you bring this up, it gives us a chance to ask Michelle, as a Floridian, and taking a look at the saga of Charlie Crist. Now, granted, an election is not a courtroom setting, but given where Charlie has been on the ballot as a Republican, as an independent, and now as a Democrat, give us your take on this journey politically for him.
Well, but if I could just go back, about Alex Sink, this is a Republican district, right? This has been a Republican district. And isn't this just a sort of a referendum on Alex Sink herself, as opposed to, I mean, I understand people are saying that this is a referendum on Obamacare and it's a referendum and the assistance that he got. But Alex Sink, couldn't it also be a referendum on her?
It very well may have been.
No.
She had her trouble. John, we got to run. Yeah. We'll have to pick it up at another time.
Thanks so much, Michelle. We thank you.
Sure,
Don't go away. There's more to come on America's Forum.